welcome to Your Subconscious. We're here to tell you about the three models of communication. But lectures are boring, so let's have a practical lesson instead.
Here we are at an acceptance speech by Stephen Hawking back in 2013, when he was awarded a special breakthrough prize in fundamental physics for his research on black holes.
Can you hear me?
This displays a transmission analysis through the one-way communicative process embodied by the speech. Unlike in a lecture where the communicator receives real-time feedback through questions from the audience, the speech addresses the audience, but there is no feedback, returning to them through the audience interaction.
I am delighted and honored to receive a special prize in fundamental physics. I would like to thank Yuri Milner for founding these prizes, to recognize outstanding work that may not qualify for the Nobel Prize, because it is very difficult or impossible to confirm experimentally.
Due to his nature as a researcher, it is seen that his worldview focuses on the expansion of knowledge in his chosen field, which is physics. The research exhibits a perception of knowledge as something that can be continually explored and elaborated, entailing a vision that the pursuit of knowledge is perpetual.
The temperature of a macroscopic black hole is so low. I thought my discovery would never be confirmed or recognized.
And there are many elements at play in this interaction, such as the message,
However, it could be claimed that it has already been indirectly confirmed by observations of the microwave background.
which is the focal point of a transmission communicative model. To summarize the speech, Hawking thanks the founder of the Fundamental Physics Breakthrough Prize, Yuri Milner, and discusses the importance of his discovery, which is coined as the Hawking radiation in cosmology and physics. Moreover, he mentions in his speech his proposal that physics has no boundaries and can be applied to entities that are even light years away from Earth. The present audience are the receivers of the message, which can only be assumed to be like-minded individuals, family, and friends of awardees and journalists who are all decoding and understanding the message presented to them. This message is delivered through a face-to-face setting. Well, obviously. However, the message is also communicated through the use of robotic equipment as Hawking battled a degenerative disease that required him to use the said equipment to communicate with the others. That being said, a monotone robotic voice was used to deliver his message. Because of this equipment, there is evident static noise that is heard consistently throughout the duration of the speech. Additionally, it can be assumed that it is near impossible that a filled venue would be completely silent. Therefore, noise from the audience and equipment is present. And as you can see, this situation is set at an award ceremony, influencing the way both the audience and the speakers interact. Because this is a formal gathering, there is a social standard being held to all participants that how they present themselves must be deemed fitting for such an occasion. And if you do notice, no feedback was garnered during this whole communication process.
I have also made contributions to cosmology. My early work with Roger Penrose showed that classical general relativity predicted the universe had a beginning in a Big Bang singularity.
Moreover, if you look at it closely, there are apparent communication types seen in this situation. Verbal. The speech was delivered as a spoken speech. Formal. The communicative situation happened at a formal gathering where formal tone of voice is expected from guests. Tone. The speech was delivered with a consistent monotonous tone, which may have been due to the use of equipment that relayed messages in a robotic voice. But the speech itself was written in a formal tone due to the nature of the event where the speech took place.
By a quantum theory of gravity. Jim Hartle and I proposed that the quantum state of the universe should be defined by a path integral over all compact Euclidean metrics without boundary.
Additionally, in this scenario, we can identify two main functions utilized. First, we have the understanding and insight, as the aim of this message is to help the audience understand not only Hawking's gratitude for the award, but also help the audience understand the gravity and importance of the research he's being awarded for. Next, we have the career development, as this speech allows Hawking to cement his credibility as a researcher, and also it is shown how he uses this opportunity to mention another of his proposals, which is about how physics has no boundaries. This helps further not only his research on black holes, but also his past proposals.
Thank you.
Based on our examination for this scenario, the situation displays functional communication. But what do you think, Aydin? I mean, since the sender was able to effectively communicate his message, he was able to deliver a straightforward speech that did not have any underlying messages that may have other implications than he intended. Moving on, let's discuss the interactive model. We'll see how two people are interacting through whistling. Isn't the weather nice up here, Aydin? Next up, Greece.
Villagers in this Greek town can whistle an entire conversation.
Here we can see the whistles correspond to certain words that are transmitted by the sender, which the receiver receives. The receiver then translates the whistles to words to get the message intended by the sender. After this, the receiver will now be the sender of a new message that is to be transmitted to the new receiver, which in this scenario is the former sender. This cycle of communication repeats, emphasizing the feedback loop of the situation.
In the example given in the video, there is no noise that can be determined since the two people communicating are seated beside each other. But, in scenarios where the language is used to communicate between two people distant from each other as intended, sounds coming from the surroundings may interfere with the message intended. The communicators in this video send out messages alternatively. It can be noticed that there are pauses between sending and receiving, since the two people involved still have to interpret the message that they got. This puts emphasis on how there is a designated encoder and decoder for every turn of the feedback loop and cannot simultaneously occur. The context and situations refer to the factors that influence the meaning of a message. Since the communicators are talking through whistling, tone of voice and facial expressions cannot act as a factor, as it is negligible in this scenario. It is also more casual in context as it is used to communicate easier than by using words. The video also does not convey an overall message, but it depicts a day-to-day conversation wherein it is more casual in nature. The channels are the medium of communication, carrying both messages and feedback. In this oral communication channel, the communicators deliver their messages through whistling, because it can be done even without facing each other, and it is usually utilized in distance communication. Feedback is only received through whistles.
The apparent communication type only involve verbal. The whistles are based on how Greek words are pronounced orally. It is the main component of communication using whistled language. It does not contain nonverbal. Since they are only communicating through whistling, the tone and facial expressions are intangible, meaning they are not to be taken into account in this communicative scenario. They also utilize an informal tone, since it is used in everyday casual conversations. There is no need for a fixed flow of channels that are needed to be followed. Speaking of that, it uses informal channel. Informal channels such as casual conversations displayed in this situation are commonly used to connect people. This scenario displays how whistling is used to connect and communicate with each other.
Shepherds enunciated Greek words into whistles to communicate long distance across hillsides. Whistles travel farther than speech because their sound waves are different. A whistle is much louder than a shout because it has a greater amplitude or volume. The information coded in the whistled wave also has a lower and simpler frequency or pitch. These longer low-frequency waves pass obstacles more easily.
Similar to the first model, the main communicative function displayed is the understanding and insight. The main foundation of the whistle language was for it to be easier when communicating long distance. This is because the lower frequency of the sound waves produced by whistling travels through obstacles easier, hence the longer distance it will reach. This helps the communicators express themselves more by creating wider opportunities for communication and interactions with each other.
The apparent worldview centers around praxeology. The language is centered around the practicality of its use. The whistling language was created by the Greeks to allow them to communicate with each other over long distances. Since shouting words create higher frequencies, this would not be effective, as the sound waves would have a hard time passing obstacles in between the sender and the receiver. Through whistling, it facilitates communication by creating lower frequency sounds that allows the sound waves to travel further distance without worry of the obstacles that it may face. And despite it being nonverbal, the communicative situation was functional. Setting aside the unique way of communication, the intended message was still transmitted to the acting receiver. From an outsider's perspective, the situation may appear dysfunctional for them as they have zero understanding of the language used in the video. However, the judgment of a communicative situation being functional or dysfunctional is only based on how the encoder and decoder of the conversation understood the messages intended, regardless of viewers' interpretation.
This kind of speech has become increasingly rare in the telephone age, but this whistler hopes to pass it on.
Oh, are you dizzy? Don't worry, we won't have to travel far for our next location. Let's go spy a date. For the last and most complex model, we have the transactional model. If you look closely, there are two speakers with different backgrounds attempting to get messages across through channels in an alternate pattern, which creates a co-creation of meaning. As they express their ideas, they come to realizations with the influence of context. It portrays a two-way process wherein the delivery of messages and the receiving of feedback happens simultaneously.
This place is nice.
Yeah. I really like the music that they play. I mean, the food's good too, but
No, the pizza's really good.
Elements consisted in this communicative situation involve noise. The place they are communicating in is playing music, which may interact negatively with the other elements of communication, as it can be the primary source of distraction. But in the situation, it appears to be the conversation starter.
When I was growing up, my mom said I had a really big chin, and that's why guys wouldn't like me.
really?
Yeah.
You don't.
Well, she said my dad cursed me with one. It's like Jay Leno, look.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think so at all.
Also, the communicators. The two communicators in the video are alternately speaking while simultaneously receiving feedback from the other. This generalizes the encoder/decoder labels into communicators. One speaker may send messages with context through a channel and receive nonverbal and verbal feedback through a feedback channel from the other. It also involves context. The context in situations refers to the factors that influence the meaning of a message. As such, some examples seen in this situation include the tone of their voices, the environment, body language, and feedback. All these factors affect the overall casual and emotional connection, as well as aid in the co-creation of meaning. The message. The subject they are talking about is the message itself. The meaningful information being communicated from one communicator to another through a channel serves as the message. The message. The subject they are talking about is the message itself. The meaningful information being communicated from one communicator to another through a channel serves as the message. The message is used to initiate conversation and is seen throughout the conversation. Additionally, the meaning of the message may be influenced by factors such as context and noise. The channels, the message and the feedback. The channels are the medium of communication carrying both messages and feedback. In this oral communication channel, the communicators deliver their message through speaking. Because the communication is done face to face, it allows immediate nonverbal responses and feedback to be involved. Speaking of feedback, the feedback in this situation is also verbal and nonverbal. We see that while one of the communicators is talking, nonverbal actions such as nods, eye contact, and facial expression serves as the feedback and is done simultaneously.
That's nice.
Your chin's very nice. Very nice. Your mom sounds insane.
Well, she did want to be an actress when she was my age.
So now, let's delve into the apparent communication types. In this situation, the verbal type of communication is observed, as the communicators speak to deliver messages. With verbal communication being rule-governed, effective communication is achieved. We see how the communicators in the situation follow these rules, making use of casual sentences and tones for an informal social context. With kinesics responses such as nods, body shifting, facial expressions, and eye contact, the communicators were able to provide immediate reactions and communicate without the use of words. Paralanguage was also observed in this situation, as the pitch and volume of their phrases and responses revealed their excitement and interest in the topic. At the beginning of the conversation, it can be observed that the awkward tension caused more timid and soft reactions. But as it progressed, we see the inclination in the emotional involvement of the communicators. Proximity was also seen to change throughout the conversation. The communicators seemed to keep a larger physical space between them, but eventually, with environmental factors considered, showed comfortability by somehow being able to interact closer. With the context that this situation is during their first date, unfamiliarity may influence tone formality. However, as similarity in age and comfortability also contribute as factors to informality between communicators, an informal tone was used. In this situation, the communicators engage in a flexible and free-flowing conversation, share their opinions, and repeatedly use personal pronouns and casual expressions. Informal channels such as casual conversation displayed in the situation are commonly used to build emotional connections in building personal relationships. Given the situation, the first date serves as a way for the communicators to create an exchange of thoughts and ideas, as well as a sharing of personal matters.
I still go to the movies with my dad.
Main communicative functions displayed include understanding and insight. In this situation, the communicators understand the perspectives of themselves and others by sharing personal experiences and opinions, which opens the conversation to feedback containing contrasting and similar ideas. This helps the communicators learn the insight and mindset of each other, overall aiding them in understanding the other, creating both trust and a sense of familiarity. This also includes meaningful relationships. To create meaningful relationships, we must understand that not only ourselves, but also others. In the situation chosen, knowing the needs and wants of both parties helps in effectively learning what one wants, what one needs, and what the other wants and what the other needs. Building meaningful relationships, like shown, also serves as an opportunity to connect deeply by knowing what is important to the other party and helping the other party understand what is important to you as they share their opinions, mention their studies, talk about their families, and express their interest. They learn about their similarities and differences, which helps to progress the conversation as well as create an emotional bond. The current context in the conversation mainly focused on relational context, as common interests and insights were being discovered, which built meaningful relationships. Because of their similar thoughts, they create realizations of different backgrounds, being able to create a united idea. The communicators appear to have an axiological worldview, as they focus on the values and experiences that are important to them, as well as the beliefs that shape their emotions and feelings.
And the communicative situation is functional. Both parties were able to effectively share and exchange thoughts, insights, and opinions with each other. The mutual understanding of stances and perspectives contribute to the overall building of the relationship. both having learned about similarities and differences, as well as having shown interest through asking questions, helped in ensuring that the messages and feedback were sent across with the intended purpose. With this, they created realizations and clarity, promoting co-creation of meaning. Not only did the communicators understand themselves further at the individual level, but they were also able to create emotional bonds with each other and build trust.
Hopefully, that after all of this, you have a better understanding of the three communication models, Aydin. But it's time for you to wake up now. Bye bye.
Entry number 186. Whoa! That was such a crazy dream. In that dream alone, I learned more about the three models of communication. The first model is the transmission model. The message is the main element in this one, and it's a one-way or linear communication model wherein the sender delivers a message and no feedback is given in return. The second one I learned about was the interactive model. Feedback is the main element in this one, and it's a communication model wherein both parties can act as both a sender and receiver alternatively, creating meaning by sending messages and receiving feedback. The last but not the least model I learned about was the transactional model of communication. The context and the world views are the main elements in this model. And in the transactional model, there occurs a two-way communication process wherein two communicators with different backgrounds engage in a conversation in which they co-create meaning, aiding them to create realizations from that experience. What differentiates the transactional model from the other two models is how the focus is on the context and worldview elements that help build new insights from different backgrounds and perceptions. This dream will forever be ingrained in my memory, as I know these three models of communication would be present in my everyday life, and of course in my English class. When I learn how to differentiate them, I will no longer be confused. I am very thankful for this dream.